universe, I could do it better. If we talking bands, got a new vendetta. They don't want me in, they gon' have to let us. They gon' try to rock when it's Armageddon. They gon' take a lot when they hear the message. And they gon' wanna try when they hear the sessions. I feel like I'm a god when I'm in your presence. I feel like I'm on top, I feel like a header. City only rock at Givenchy. Got a new white bag and it coming full speed. And they see me at the top, now they really like me. Gotta move like that when you're real icy. Cause it's way less friends than the haters. Way less. And that's you make it.
Hello everyone, how you guys doing? My name is Jalen Nash. This is Blue Talk, and tonight we're definitely excited to have great conversations with our lovely panelists. Today we're going to be discussing the pandemic, specifically how people have been faring with their mental health throughout the pandemic and distributing vaccines. Two very interesting topics I'm excited to talk about with each of you. But before we do that, I just want to give all my panelists a minute to introduce themselves, tell us your name, where you're from, and one interesting thing you do. Joe, let's start with you.
Sweet. Hey, everybody. I'm Joe. I am from Hampton Roads, Virginia. Originally from South Carolina, where I've done the majority of my organizing and work in politics. Graduated from the University of South Carolina. A major in theater. Taught school for 3 years, and now I'm a full-time digital operative in the political world. That's what dope. I do.
That's super dope. Next, I'm going to give the stage to our lovely guest, Keisha.
Hello, I am Keisha. I am from Denmark, South Carolina, and I've actually done some organizing in a political race as well, and I sang. That's pretty much it.
That's what's up. Mr. Andre, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Andre Desir. My friends call me Dre. I'm from Queens, New York. Currently live in Philadelphia. I'm a lawyer by profession, and cool thing that I do is I sell magic cards in my spare time.
That's what's up. How'd you get into that? I'm gonna ask you that later. Miss Amina, nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you guys again too. I'm Amina. I'm originally from Pembroke, North Carolina. I'm an enrolled member of the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina, and I'm speaking to you from Catawba. And I have a master's in physiology and biophysics with a concentration in integrative medicine from Georgetown. So I'm really excited to talk about the topic we're talking about tonight. It is one of my favorites. And a fun thing about me, well, it's not really fun, but I work as a sexual assault and domestic violence advocate, so it's also an interesting thing we can probably bring into the conversation.
For sure, that's definitely important work, and thank you for that. And to cap it off, Maceo, would you like to say hello?
Hi, y'all. My name is Maceo Kareem. I'm from New York City, Southside Jamaica, Queens, to be exact, but I live in Brooklyn now. I know you say you're from Queens, power. So I run campaigns. I've, helped non-for-profits, advocacy, NOCP. I work for the New York State. She was the Black, Puerto Rican, Asian, Hispanic caucus leader for 3 years, ran the office. And now I'm on a city council campaign, and I was the city manager for a non-for-profit. And one interesting about me, since the pandemic, I actually started collecting video games because, my childhood.
That's what's up. What's the last game you picked up?
Actually, it just came. Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one for Sega Genesis.
That's classic. That's what's up. That's what's up. And then just a little bit about myself. My name is Jalen Nash, as I said before. I just graduated from Syracuse University. I'm in Jersey right now, and I love politics. I just love everything about it. And I'm excited to talk to each of you guys about the topics we have today. So as I mentioned before, COVID is pretty much all most people are talking about. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So recently, the Wellbeing Trust and Robert Graham Center Analysis created a report on the growing epidemic of something called deaths of despair. This includes deaths due to drug, alcohol, or depression symptoms. The report basically said that this epidemic of death of despair are growing at an alarming rate. They warned that about 75,000 people will die this year alone, additionally, because of these deaths of despair. I definitely have had some experiences with alcohol use, drug misuse, and depression. Not personally, but with the people around me. But I'm curious, just for the panelists, since everything is shut down since back in March last year, I'm wondering how the pandemic has affected your mental health.
I'll go ahead. So I graduated from law school in May of 2020. I didn't get a graduation, right? Like I spent $150,000 at Villanova. I went to school for 3 years. My mom, she bought an outfit a year in advance. She had a matching hat and everything. She was ready to go, and they canceled my graduation. And I honestly, to this day, just to be honest with everybody, I don't think I just push it off to the side. I don't think I really dealt with it. I really that was a momentous achievement. I'm the first person in my family with a professional degree. And it was an opportunity to celebrate. I have 2 small nephews that are 11 and 15, and it would have been an excellent opportunity for them to, experience that and have that put in front of them as this is normal. This is what you need to accomplish, or something similar, right? Like I was looking forward to that, and that was taken away from me by the pandemic. And I honestly haven't come to terms with it. I buried it because you need to keep moving. You need to keep like in Finding Nemo. You need to keep swimming. So I haven't really addressed or dealt with the loss in a meaningful way, I think.
I feel that. I definitely relate as someone who graduated this year, and I just want to tell you congratulations. Even though you didn't get the pom-poms and confetti, like you definitely earned that degree. You did what you came to do, and your family's going to be put on for generations because of the work you did. So don't look at that as any type of way because the pandemic took that moment. But yeah, Keisha, do you have any thoughts, or Maceo, I know both of you were looking in the camera, do you have any thoughts on just how the pandemic has affected your mental health?
Yes. So basically, I would say that the pandemic as a whole has actually affected my mental health. Because when you actually, first and foremost, let me say that I'm a student at South Carolina State University. And when you are in the middle of a pandemic and it affects everybody's families differently, but you still have assignments that are due, you have professors that continuously upload assignments. And actually now, this week, I'm actually in my midterm week. So we have exams that are going on. But at the same time, you try to balance work life and school life as a whole. And then you add a pandemic to it as well as a mask. You wear these every day, and when you're not feeling well, it's not like you can just text your professor and say, well, I don't feel well today, so I'm not going to get online and log on to your class. So I would say it has definitely been a task, and I'm quite sure other students as well as adults can relate as well.
Definitely. I can only imagine. Amina, do you have any thoughts on anything Keisha just said, or any thoughts of your own of how the pandemic's affected your mental health?
Yeah, for sure. So I was the person in the memes that was super happy about being able to stay home at first. I'm not gonna lie. But after a while, I missed having the option of being able to see my friends, of being able to go home and see my family when I wanted to, without having the anxiety that I could possibly spread a virus that could harm them or put them in the hospital. And at the same time, I think something that I've been struggling with even in recent times is, like with these increased number of deaths, I've lost a few people in my community, a few people in my family from this virus. And I think that the grief aspect, as was mentioned before, is important, and it's something that's not happening right now because they're limiting how many people can go to the funeral, so people can't say their goodbyes to their loved ones, and that has a tremendous impact. And then particularly in the Native communities, especially over here on the East Coast, when we lose some of these older people in our communities, these are our people that are carrying our language. They're carrying so much knowledge that hasn't been passed down yet, and so we're losing these libraries of knowledge as well. And so it's kind of like we're scrambling to try to get all this information down before it's gone forever. And so it also puts a lot of extra pressure on the community to try to sustain the culture part of it too. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, the loss is taking a tremendous toll on everybody, and I definitely give you all my condolences for all the people you might have experienced. Joe, do you have any thoughts on just how this pandemic has affected you? You're on mute, Joe.
So yeah, at the beginning, I really was not. I was stressed out by the pandemic, but I think over time, like, and I think everybody kind of did. I kind of grew like more desensitized to all that, like anxiety, depression, like all the gambit of it, right? And just pretty much frustration, like with other people, like not adhering to stuff, and like, you know, kind of just taking it at varying levels of importance and varying levels of understanding. So yeah, I think that was hard to deal with. But at the same time, like, I don't know if anyone else had this experience, but these were like the best, like this last 2 years probably for my life has been like the 2 best years of my life, right? And so it's weird to kind of have like this juxtaposition between like the worst shit, the worst stuff happening in the world, right? But on the other side, like, I'm doing really good with like my personal life and personal growth and personal development. And like, with the exception of having to go through some mental health stuff this year, like the way I dealt with it, like I'm super proud of too. So like, it definitely was the worst of times, but it definitely was, it was good for me too.
So let me ask you a question. Do you ever feel maybe jealous of the success? I know we hear a lot of people talk about things like pandemic, and despite all the grief and terrible things happen, people are talking about how they're super up right now. So Joe, you definitely didn't say that you were super up right now. That definitely wasn't the energy. But like, do you ever feel jealous or like a type of way because you've experienced like positivity during the pandemic?
I don't feel guilty about it. I don't know. So I'm not like a big survival of the fittest type dude or anything, but like, I don't know. I feel like this entire situation made me stronger. I'm sure it didn't have the same effect on everybody. But I tend to be forged under fire. So like for me, like all this pressure and the fact that everybody was kind of through it kind of just, it propelled me into action really. Cause as soon as like stuff happened, I was like, I need to get in my community. I need to feed folks. I got work to do. Like as soon as it happened, I was like, I got work to do. So for me, it was like, it gave me some purpose actually. So I don't know, really, like I said, really juxtaposition of feelings. Cause I know the hardship. I lost people this year too, just like everybody. Right.
Yeah.
But the balance.
Definitely, and purpose and finding that in the pandemic has been so important for a lot of people. I'm wondering, Maceo, you haven't got a chance to speak yet, but if you could speak to anyone who's going through some mental health difficulties right now, what are some strategies and recommendations you might give them to cope?
So, strategy. So for me personally, I dropped out of school because I knew that, because at the time I was working in the state legislature and a lot of people were dying. So I had to get them resources and I had to go into the office. So for me, it was business as usual. It was like the pandemic existed, but it didn't exist to me because I still had to find resources, find pantries. So I kept myself busy, helping people. I would have people crying on the phone, telling me their family died. I would call like people in the district, the elderly people, to check up on them because that's what my member wanted us to do. And I had their the healthcare workers saying, "Oh, I have family in Queens." I said, "Okay, cool. I know the city council member in Queens. Let me, get you his information." And so my whole thing is, do what you love to do and don't push yourself because I see a lot of people there. Like my Facebook friends, my university Senate Facebook friends, they're like, "Oh, midterms is killing us. The professors are not understanding." I said, "No, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to straight help people." And I started living in my mosque for 3 months, so I was helping people like in my mosque, and I was helping people at work. So I was doing double duty, and I kept myself busy because I think that's when I'm at my best.
That's dope. That's awesome. That's awesome. Anyone else? Do you have any recommendations or coping strategies you might give?
I mean, a lot of people don't like to hear this, but like, I mean, I don't think it was Cat Williams that said sometimes you just got to build a bridge or fuck it and get over it. Like at this point, like a year and a half later, like if you're still standing and surviving and like thriving right now, even just in living, like, I mean, you kind of got to take that as like you made it through the battle. Like you made it through something like that. Like this isn't the first time, you know, pandemics have happened. We've lost lots of people to not only this, we lose people to war all the time, right? This has been a great loss for humanity, right? Yeah, but it's also an opportunity for us to remake ourselves, because a lot of stuff was effed up before, right? And we have an opportunity to kind of fix a lot of those things too. So I don't want to take this, like what's been awfully terrible, like, and just like live in that forever. Like, so I guess at this point, I'm a little bit over COVID, period. Like just thinking about it, watching the news, I don't care. Like I'm kind of over it. I'm also like, I mean, I got vaccinated, so it's like that really changed my whole feelings about it too, because it wasn't like masks.
That's cool. You know?
Okay. So maybe that's why I'm like a little bit kind of over it. But I think, I don't know, for those of us that are not going to get vaccinated, I mean.
So let's talk about that. That's actually a great segue into our next point. One of the high, unless anyone else has any other thoughts on what people can do to.
I did. So you said how people can cope with COVID?
How people can cope with mental health.
Oh, so one thing that, you know, I want to say, because, you know, my good buddy said, Cat Williams, you know, I'm a Dave Chappelle friend. I love Dave Chappelle. He said, you know, for the first time as a black man, because he has money, he can actually think about his position. And I feel like for like black people, I can't speak for everybody, you know, because I'm predominantly black. I rep black, so I can't say nothing. Like I got family who are Native and everything. You know, shout out to my Cherokee family. But I feel like this is the first time that we're actually sitting down and actually thinking about our feelings and thinking about like where we really sit. Because most of the time, you know, people who are like, you know, black are just surviving through work, you know, surviving to make it happen. Now it's like, you know, time stands still and everything. You still have to survive, but you have to think about tomorrow. So I feel that, you know, this is nothing new. Like I remember you saying something about you know, alcoholism, domestic violence, things like that. It always existed, but you know, since it wasn't a lot to report on, you know, these statistics have gone up and everything. So, you know, just to think about, you know, everyday life.
Definitely. And yeah, that's a great point. I would love to talk about that a bit more, but we do have to get to the vaccine topic. We were actually led in pretty perfectly by Joe on that. But just as a quick little background, as of right now, about 12 companies have developed vaccines worldwide, 3 in America. I believe they're Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer. As of today, about 78 million people, including Joe, have got the vaccine. The goal is to get 200 million administered by July 31st, 2021. So just to start off, I know Joe said that he got the vaccine. Who else on the panel has got the vaccine? Just wondering if you could just like raise your hand. Okay. And Amina, I'm curious, how have your thoughts about the vaccine maybe changed since getting it?
Well, coming from somebody who's familiar with evidence-based medicine, when I first heard that they were going to have a vaccine available in a year, I was like, well, wait a minute, because vaccine research takes at least 5 years if you're doing, if it's evidence-based and you're getting FDA approval and you're getting, you know, a fully run clinical trial. But, you know, after looking at some of the studies that were available, each one of the vaccines that are available now had at least 40,000 participants in it. Some of there were side effects with like looking at the Bell's palsy side effects, which really actually sometimes comes from just the injection site. So they just stick the needle in the nerve. It's not necessarily the contents of the vaccine that causes that. And I think that's just important for people to know. And I think a lot of times when we're watching the news and stuff, we have to remember that sometimes news panelists or these news articles that write about medicine don't necessarily have someone that's looked at it through a medical lens, or they don't have like a doctor necessarily writing. Like it's great that someone like Fauci's on CNN talking about these things too. But I also think that in terms of it's a big educational thing, because I think there's a lot of room to have compassionate conversations, because we know that Western medicine, and particularly the government and all this isn't generally favored in indigenous and Black communities, considering the history with things like forced sterilization, things like Tuskegee, and things like smallpox blankets and things that were distributed back in the day. And this isn't the first pandemic for indigenous people. Like 9% of our population was wiped out by pandemics with European arrival. So there's a lot of things that were floating through my head, and I'll be brief and try to wrap this up really quick. But it's a big question, and the reason I got the vaccine is because I looked at the literature. I looked at how expedited this whole process can be when the FDA takes a step back and is like, okay, let's work with the scientists and let's get this emergency use authorization through so we can start saving lives. And I think I can keep going on a tangent about this, but I got it because I wanted to. I'm healthy enough. The effects or the risks that I have getting the vaccine are the same as me. The types of risks that I would get just walking around, even with my mask on, the chances of getting COVID are still about the same. So, I just thought we might as well go ahead and give it a shot. And I got my first shot today, and I'm waiting to get my second shot soon. And I know I said a lot, and I know I could say a lot more, but I'm going to stop there.
No, that was perfect. That was great. I definitely appreciate that.
I wanted to chime in about the vaccine because I've been this has been a topic that's really, I think, been tormenting me for several reasons. I have a partner and I live with her, and she got both doses of the vaccine. And I read the New England Journal of Medicine, and I follow all the vaccine tests, and I've read all the studies in which pregnant women were underrepresented, and I've refused to get the vaccine, right, for several reasons. I think the historical aspect that you've highlighted about how the U.S. government has generally treated and disclosed information related to healthcare and health benefits has been poor. Like, they don't got a good track record, right? Like, we look at their history of treating of biopic communities when it comes to healthcare, it's bad. Right. So I don't want to. And especially as this originated under a Trump presidency, I wasn't trusting shit that was coming out of the CDC. Like, whatever they were saying, it was a dub. Right. Until there was another independent organization that verified and can, issue data that matched what I was understanding from other sources. I just wasn't with it. Right. And I don't plan to get the vaccine. Right. But I have a luxury. I work from home. Right. I don't have to go out and engage in the world unless it's absolutely necessary. So I recognize that's not a lot of luxury a lot of people, Black and other people have, and people of color have. I am special in that I can make my decision without impacting others, right? Yeah. I'm sorry, you're right. The vaccine took a lot more than a year. They've had it in production for quite some time now, until it recently came out and people were able to use it. But we don't know the long-term effects, right? We don't have a 5-year study, right, on what happens after you've been exposed to the vaccine. There's a level of risk here that I'm just not comfortable taking. And again, I recognize my level of comfort interacts with other people. Like, I live in the world. I have to be a responsible citizen, and I am afforded the luxury of being responsible by not taking the vaccine and staying away from other people. And I recognize people don't have that luxury. Yeah. And again, we were talking about the history. It wasn't but a couple months ago that the United States government was forced sterilizing women in prison camps, right? Like, that happened 6 months ago. And so, the track record is real bad. Science not real clear. I have luxury taking a pass on it.
That's real. Maceo looked like he wants to jump in, so you got it.
It's funny because I was going to quote Tuskegee and I was going to quote Guatemala, because before the pandemic, I actually did a psychology class, and it was talking about how the American government, sterilized people, Puerto Rico too. But this is my thing, though. You feel me? And I hope I'm not the devil advocate. I've been listening to a lot of conservative, outlets, like Louder Crowder, and like people who are conservative, but they're not fanatics. Like, you can have a conversation with them. So again, they said that it hasn't been that long to even develop anything for the vaccine. I'm not a medical doctor. Swine flu, and there's another one. It's it's kind of is part of the same family and everything. And I don't remember a vaccine for swine flu. I don't remember a vaccine for swine flu, and I don't remember a vaccine for the other thing. I don't remember what the other thing is, but SARS and everything. So there was a swine flu, SARS, and mad cow. I don't remember vaccines for those ever being produced.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of conservative people, you know, who are white, you know, they're like, no, we're not doing it. And if you ever look at, like, you know, countries and everything, like example, America, and when revolutions happen or whatever the case may be, it's always, you know, the government, you know, trying to oppose something. I mean, propose something. And then there are people saying, no, don't do it, you know? And then I'm like, and then their mainstream media is saying, oh, they're the crazy ones because they're not wearing a mask, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. But think about it. What virus can you actually catch, you know, when you're like breathing air and things like that, you know? And then it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be a virus anymore. I think it would be something, you know, more lethal, you know? So I have my skeptics, and I'm looking at both ends. I'm looking at the conservatives, I'm looking at the liberals. I'm trying to be a realist because this is my life. And, you know, I'm not trying to die. I'm not trying to be sterilized, you know, dealing with the Black community and everything. You know, we are 100%, you know, not conspiratory, but, you know.
Yeah, we are.
Paranoid. So no. There's a difference
We've
between
been on a conspiracy tangent for the last 5 minutes where none of the facts have been connected. We've literally just done that for the last 5 minutes. So you're not gonna tell me that
So hold on a second.
You playing? Come on.
Hold on a second, because the conservatives are saying some things that make sense. The liberals are saying some things that make sense.
My problem with your argument is not that you're talking to conservatives, and it's not that you're talking to liberals. It's that it doesn't seem like you're listening to enough doctors, because I'm not sure either of those two sides of the coin are able to give you a fair.
Hold on a second. Doctors prescribe a lot of different things. And think about it. A lot of people, Michael Jackson died of a doctor, you know?
My doctor prescribed me Tylenol. I don't know all the ingredients. Every time I see it, I'd be like, I got a headache.
Hold on. One mic.
Didn't die on impact of a bullet.
Maceo, what's the ingredients in Fruit Loops?
You said what?
Can I make a clarification?
One mic.
You don't know what the ingredients in Fruit Loops are, but that don't stop people from eating Fruit Loops.
I can buy a box and look at it, though. I can't do it for the thing.
You look at the vaccine data too. That's my point.
One more thing I want to raise is I have confirmed that when the politicians, when they get the vaccine on camera, nothing's actually in it. So prove that to me. You feel me? Like that's what I'm saying. You feel me?
All right, Amina,
I can't prove anything from that statement because there's nothing to prove there. But we don't have to unpack things we can't prove. We can just leave that where it is and know where.
Oh, so you're neglecting history then?
We can leave it in fake news.
I do think it's so important to unpack this, though, because I mean, and like you said, like a lot of these fears, they are rational, and I think that it's important that we present all of the information. So we're presenting the history, there's a historical trauma that's associated with that. There's the insidious trauma that's associated with that. So people have a right to be afraid, especially people of color. I'm not denying that as a person of color, and I'm Afro-Indigenous, by the way. So
I don't gotta be afraid of anything, and I don't got the right to be afraid of anything. I have the right to be free in my own country. I have the right to educate myself. I have the right to empower myself, but I don't got the right.
You're not free.
That's you. That's you, though. And I'm talking, but just give me a second. I'll be done in a second. That's why I'll be done 2 minutes. But it's important to paint the facts for people, put everything out there for people. And so when it comes to the vaccine specifically, it's important to make sure that we understand that it's. So you were saying something about SARS and you were talking about swine flu, and you're right. They are similar viruses. They're from the same virus family. They're the coronaviruses. And so when they say coronavirus, and specifically COVID-19 is the emergent coronavirus. And so
not a coronavirus, but SARS is. But continue on.
Okay, thank you. But I mean, you can go ahead since you wanted to interrupt me anyway. I'm not gonna.
She's the one with the degree, though.
I thought we were having an honest,
She's the
truthful
one with the
conversation.
degree.
Yeah, but you
Injecting some
keep
truth.
She's the one with the
you keep
degree. How you
interrupting me. I'm trying
arguing
to.
with her?
Maceo, Joe, stop interrupting.
I mean, it's the same. Like it's the same thing. It's the same energy. Like you're Mike Pence to me right now. Like let me speak, man. Like give me a second. Just give me a second to get it out.
You're
And
talking
so-
right now. You should speak.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I lost my train of thought though.
You don't have to be a dick.
Well, I
like-
do think just to be
He has
clear,
a
we
degree,
were
that's-
having the
Maceo, me having an opinion isn't being a dick, all right?
But she was talking.
And I was addressing something that was not factual.
That's cool. That's cool. But she has a degree in medicine. I don't. So I'll listen. I'm not arrogant. I'll listen to her because she has more information than me. But my whole thing is people think black people is a monolith. No, we're not a monolith, and we're all different. You feel me? I'm a type of person saying, okay, listen, I don't trust this shit. You feel what I'm saying? And you can say, okay, you trust it. Cool. That's you trusting it, not me. You feel what I'm saying?
And I'm defying the monolith and agreeing with my own fucking opinion. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That's your opinion.
I would chime in and say that like
you have no like. Are you a doctor? Like, what
I know how to read just like you do, and like you chose
It
not
doesn't
to.
matter about
About
reading.
the vaccines.
It doesn't
About
matter.
yours.
All right, guys.
It's
We're a little bit out of
It's not
hand.
about reading. It's
We're a
about
little bit out of hand. We're a little bit out of hand.
I just want to I want to chime in real quick and say that like so for instance I have a lot I share the sympathies shared earlier, but I did the research, right? Like I actually read the reviews and the
Which I
studies.
appreciate.
The Moderna, like I read the studies and I read how they created the vaccine, and I made a deliberate like choice, right, or an educated choice, right? So I realized what all my options were, explored every option, and decided which option and which risk I was willing to assume, which I think is what I would advocate for everyone to do, as opposed to a lot of the hearsay and a lot of the like, well, how does it work, right? Rather than people don't want to do the work and follow the paths, they let other people lead them down the paths. And that's what I want to get across to everybody is that like too often in the black community, we don't trust what we hear. And that's because we don't do the work, right? So I want to advocate and those studies, they're all published online. How something gets approved by the FDA, that process is all online. Like everything that happens, it's published. There's minutes. You can read every person who had any part to do with anything in this vaccine and make a decision yourself. And that's what I think people should take away from that.
I agree. And kind of that being said, I think one of the biggest difficulties with this vaccine rollout, or at least one of the factors that's making it harder, is that everyone has a voice. Everyone can have an opinion on the vaccine, on the medical merits, on all types of stuff, right? And I think that because our community is suffering from it so much, it's our responsibility that when we do speak in public forums about these things, we're coming from an educated place about facts, not feelings, not beliefs, because people are dying over this shit. Like 500,000 people are dead, and we as a community can't afford to be having arguments about the vaccine, to having like petty disputes. I think it's our responsibility to really educate if we're going to speak on it or not speak on it. But with that, I'm curious, Keisha, I know you're in college and you haven't really got a chance to speak as much in the moment, but how do you think college students are reacting to the vaccine? And like, what have you seen from your perspective as it relates to that?
Well, as I've said before, I do attend South Carolina State University. And while that is, for those who do not know, that is an HBCU, there are not many people that have agreed to take the vaccine, I would say. But there have been a lot of people that have said that taking the vaccine was not an option for them. Back home, coming back and forth at home, I know that South Carolina State University, you have to take a COVID test if you choose to be on campus, but you do have the option to house off of campus. But I would say that it affects everyone differently, of course. And here, again, I say that it may be religious preferences or at home preferences, but to each his own. And everyone doesn't take the vaccine. I, for one, have not chosen to take it. I chose to stay at home, take all of my courses at home. And with that being said, I made sure that I take the prerequisite necessary protocol to keep myself safe as well as others. I don't go out as much, but when I do, I make sure to mask up. The elderberry gummies, I know we've actually had different things sent out via the university email to keep people safe. And I know that strongly something that has affected college students. And I'm not sure how many people do so, but I know South Carolina State University, instead of having a spring break the whole week, it is up from 1 week we have a Monday off. The week after that, you have a Tuesday off. So instead of being consecutive days, they've broken it up into 5 weeks where you have a Monday through Friday off. And I'm not a fan of that, because usually college students look forward to spring break after midterms. It is a stressful time. Nevertheless, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and you don't know whether you're going left or right, and you have lost loved ones during this time. So for them to cut our short break, our spring break, excuse me, I feel some type of way about that. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I feel like that's really messed up. We need a break, but at the same time, their logic behind it, what was told to me, was that it was cut up for the students that are on campus to not go home. But I'm not a student who's on campus, so that affects me in a negative way because I'm home regardless. I am not counted in that number, and the ratio, student to teacher ratio, that are on campus is very small.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of angry about that. But
Definitely, that makes sense, and I hope you figure out a way to have fun on spring break, regardless. Just don't post it on social media so you won't get in trouble. But we are about 36 minutes into the show. We're about 10 minutes left, so I do want to just go into our last topic. We've had a pretty good debate, as you can see here, on whether or not we would take the vaccine ourselves. That is its own issue in and of itself. Another big issue that we're seeing is that although low-income communities, specifically low-income communities of color, have been hit hardest by COVID-19, when you look at case numbers and deaths, they are pretty much the last in line to actually get this limited supply of vaccines. People in underserved neighborhoods have been tripped up by a confluence of obstacles, including registration phone lines, websites that take hours to navigate, and lack of transportation to get to their appointments. I saw a stat in the news last week that New York City has vaccinated more people who don't live in New York City than Blacks and Latinos that do live in New York City combined. So I'm just curious, from your guys' perspective, do you believe that your communities are really being served? Or more so the people who are willing to get vaccines? Do you think the people willing to get vaccines in your community could get them? And yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Maceo, you can go first.
One thing I do want to say is, in New York City, because I'm currently in New York City, and this is the weird thing about it. I've worked in government, I've been an advocate and everything. There are people that live, in New York City, they tell their families in other states. And because most of them don't drive or whatever the case may be, they come here and they get the vaccines. Or even something as simple as what's that thing called? I keep forgetting what it's called. Summer youth.
Mm-hmm.
People from other states will call their families, put their cousins and everything on their lease or whatever, as a resident, and then they get the jobs, and kids from New York City don't get the jobs. So it's the same with the vaccines. But this is the thing. A lot of people in New York City, who are Black, they won't say this in public. But if you come to their door and have a one-on-one conversation and they feel you're authentic, they're like, oh no, in my country, because a lot of people in New York City are from other countries, like Jamaica, Haiti, whatever the case may be. The poisoning of the water, the Haitian water, happened not too long ago. I ran to a Haitian girl. She said, oh no, we don't believe in that. You feel me? A Jamaican lady I talked to, she was like, nah, we don't do that. We eat herbs and spices, and that's our medicine. You feel me? So I'm talking to a lot of different people, and I'm not, I'm not someone to judge. I'm someone to learn. I run into a lot of Africans, and they're like, the motherland. I'm African American. You know what I'm saying? Loud and proud. And I'm like, okay, cool. I want to know how the motherland take care of things, because what they grow on the ground and just their diet, makes them non-susceptible to certain things. But because we're in America and we're eating processed meat, and we're not really like eating healthy and everything, we're more susceptible. More susceptible to things. So people, a lot of the immigrant community that stays mostly to their core food from their motherland and everything, they're like, okay, we're good, or we'll see what happens and everything. So those are the conversations I'm actually engaging with in PPE giveaways, and just the broader spectrum. So that's where I'm at.
Definitely. Keisha, I thought you unmute your mic, and Andre, we'll get to you right after, or we could swing it to you right now.
So it's very funny. I used to, like, a couple years ago, troll on Facebook and see all the people who are like anti-vaxxers and didn't believe in vaccines for their kids to go to school. And I used to I used to make fun of them, right? I used to make memes about them and thought it was funny and cool. And now I find myself in this weird kind of like flip side where I'm the anti-vaxxer here, but not in the same way that I don't believe in the science. And I just wanted to push back on some of the things that was said previously about like how Black people, stick to their own and have all these foods from the motherland that keep them healthy. I'm sorry, but infant mortality amongst Black women are the highest in America, right? And that has nothing to do with what you eat. That is the healthcare profession and how it treats and takes care of Black people, right? The shortest lifespan, Black men, right? That has to do with nutrition. That has to do with us understanding how to age, well, and taking care of our health and avoiding diabetes.
Yes, sir.
What was that?
I said, and access.
So like all these things, you can say all that mumbo jumbo, but the numbers don't add up, right? So black kids die the most, and Black men die the earliest. So all that other stuff is out the window. And then Black people predominantly live in food deserts where they don't have access to fresh vegetables and other like nutritious foods that like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's that are convenient in white communities are not convenient in Black communities. So I mean, those issues are truth and factual. Now, from the vaccine side of view, and from that perspective, Black people, unfortunately, are at the front lines of having to work and keep going to work and being exposed to other people. And that's where they're getting the virus. And I don't think I'm in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Convention Center is a huge vaccine location currently where they're vaccinating people. When my partner went to get her second dose, I drove her, I stood outside and I watched the line. It was predominantly white people. But guess who was working the line? It was Black people working the line. Security officers were Black, but everybody going inside to go get the vaccine was white people, right? And I'm not quite sure if there are Black people who think like me, like, nah, I'm good, I'm gonna pass on that, or if it's Black people who couldn't operate the system, didn't. My partner had to jump through hoops, and she's the VP of operations for a giant chain, and she's the one, and she had to jump through hoops to figure out how to get it. So we have access to resources and ability that I fear other people don't have, and I can't quite parse out whether or not they're sharing my sympathies, like, nah, we gonna pass, or if it's because they tried to and they failed and so they gave up. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure what happens or what's happening, but it is not serving the Black community well, I think.
Definitely, it's probably.
One thing I do want to say, if I can say something.
Of course.
So what I want to say is, yes, Black communities are food deserts, and a lot of things he said was right. The one thing I do want to say is, and you can fact check this if you want, most of the bad medicines or the medicines that's not really like the desired medicine usually come up in Black communities. Most Black boys are autistic or whatever after they get most vaccines. So what I'm saying,
I can't let that slide. I don't think that's true.
Hold on a second. Because I actually did a study with one of my friends from college, like a few years back and everything, because we had a group project. And again, like you don't have to believe me, but do some research, because Bobby Kennedy even said that. Not Bobby Kennedy. I forget, it was one of the Kennedys and everything at the Main Man March. I'm gonna send everybody the video and everything when I find it. But he was like, yeah, it's true that the most of the vaccines and everything that's not like premium do come in Black communities. I found out there's like 2 different types of vaccines, or like 3, something like that. And like there's like a 1-shot thing or 2 shots, and they have the better medicine at your college. And I inquired, okay, cool. which one at your college do they have? They have the lesser one, and in Chelsea, they have like the better one. You know, Chelsea is a predominantly white community.
I know Chelsea.
Your college is a predominantly black, and they have the lower grade, and in Chelsea they have the higher grade. So what I'm saying at the end of the day is like, hey, you could do your research and everything. That's not me. That's
I think a lot of the things that you said now are loaded, right? So better grade, lower grade, these values that you're ascribing to things, they have like a loaded.
Hold up.
I'll let you speak. I didn't cut you off.
Thank you.
So all I'm saying is you could do the research yourself, but it just so happens that the lower quality of things ends up in the black community. That's why black people are suspicious. That's all I'm saying.
And Amina, I just want to jump to you real quick, then I'll go back to Andre. You sounded like you had to
I think, are you talking about the different companies that release different vaccines? I just wanted to clarify that. Are you saying like the black communities are getting like Moderna as opposed to Pfizer, or opposed to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which I think you're talking about is a single shot one?
So I know. So you said Moderna and Verizon, right?
Pfizer.
So I think I don't know exactly, but I think the Verizon is better than the Moderna or whatever. I'm not very sure because, like, again,
Pfizer was the one that was first out, and I think what's being misinterpreted there is they ran out of Pfizer, so they started using Moderna. So I know because I got mine from Robeson County Health Department, and they had Pfizer at first. They ran out of Pfizer, so they started using Moderna. So I got the Moderna shot today. So
which one is better though? That's my question.
They're both. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they both had pretty. They had phase 3 clinical trial studies. So I mean, they've both been researched. I don't know what you're trying to ask. I don't know if there's like a one that's considered better. It's pretty. Yeah. It depends on how you interpret the research.
Can I ask you a question though, Amina? I feel like from just like seeing everything that happened with the vaccine, it seems like, I know you have expertise in the area. It seems like vaccine is half science and half communication. So like, I'm curious from your perspective, just like with your expertise in the health and medicine fields, what do you think our health and medicine professionals can do better to kind of communicate the real facts about the vaccine to our people in a way that we can trust? And then I'll let everyone else answer that question as we close out.
Well, also, let me just say, I agree with a lot of what Andre said throughout the conversation. And also, I think that the communication piece is important because we have to speak and talk to people, because medicine is a different language. And I am not an expert. I'm in the process of getting into medical school. I have a master's degree in physiology. And
sorry, I was too early. My bad.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, and even if I'm a doctor, any doctor that tells you they're an expert, they shouldn't be your doctor, because you know these things are always constantly changing. If you're really about the science and you're really about following the research and things like that, you're going to have a certain amount of humility when it comes to interpreting things, and you're going to recognize things are always going to change. And sometimes it's not up to you to like feed your patient information. Sometimes it's about you listening to your patient and doing what the patient's comfortable with. And I want to emphasize that like this whole thing is about choice. It's about body autonomy. It's about what people want to do for themselves, for their health. And I want to emphasize that. And that's something that my ancestors didn't have the choice to do. And so I'm not going to sit here and impose my views just because I got the vaccine that everybody needs to get the vaccine. I think for me, for my health, for my body, for me, I think it's the best thing for me. I don't think it's the best thing for everybody. And for the people who don't get it, there's this thing called herd immunity. You will be fine. If enough people get it, you won't have to get it. Some people can't get it. Some people can't physically get it. And I think that's important to emphasize. But at the same time, I'm just going to stop there because I don't even remember what question you asked. But I just wanted to end on that note that this is about choice, and it's about making the best decision for yourself.
Definitely. Thank you for those insights. And then I don't know if Joe is still on the call, or I guess Joe is not on the call no more. But Keisha, I'm curious what your thoughts are just on how medical professionals can communicate information about the vaccine a little bit better so that we don't have all this speculation and debate.
Okay, so my opinion would be to be more informative about it. Yes, as some of the other panelists have explained, that everything is available to you online, and now everything is kind of like technology based. So it's not that it's going to be hard for you to get your phone or your laptop and while you check your email and check it out. But I do feel as if there are a lot of loopholes or questionable things, especially as it pertains to religion or as we say, the Black community and other ethnicities, minority groups as well. But I do feel that what medical physicians can do is to keep us in the loop while they're learning. As Amina stated, that they are experts as well, because the medical world is always constantly changing. It's just something that you have to be willing to grasp and keep a hold on. But if you want to advertise a vaccine, be willing to take the extra mile to go over people with health plans, like just the same as you would do for someone who like a pregnant mom, for example. You would sit down as a medical professional and take her through her options. Why should you get the vaccine? Why should you not? Just because we don't have underlying medical conditions, the information should be more available. I feel like we see it in the news. We may see it with a red banner going across the TV, but how often do you think that these people tune into that? So I would say just make more information available. And if you can't beat the generation of being so technology based, join them by putting more of that information that's actually factual out there.
That was dope. We got to record that and put that clip on Instagram. That was fire. That was super fire. Yeah, round of applause for that.
Thank you.
Andre, do you have any thoughts on the communication aspect or anything Keisha or Amina said?
I just wanted to share. So I always like, sharing as much information and knowledge that I have. And one thing I know a little bit about is the legal profession. And one of the standards we have in the legal profession is called informed consent. And that's like the number one thing for if you ever get sued for, poorly representing someone, the question they're going to ask is like informed consent. Did you give the person enough information for them to make an adequate decision, right? And what that means, what adequate means, is just like that they chose with their eyes wide open. And I think the Black community particularly needs to have all the facts and information in front of them, and in a way that they can understand. I remember this quote from college: it's speaking the language of the people. And what that means is in order to be an effective communicator, people have to hear you. And I think the Black community and communities of colors have a couple walls up that stop them from hearing. And those walls were erected, I think, by the American government, the Western medical system. They put up those walls in the way that the historical trauma, and it's hard for them to overcome some of those same walls that they put up. And the community doesn't want to believe them, much to their disadvantage, because it's very funny. I'm watching, like, at work and in other spheres, I'm literally watching white people go crazy trying to figure out new schemes so they can get the vaccine. And there must be something to it if they're like changing their address and moving out of state and got a cousin doing all these wild, crazy schemes to get the vaccine. There might be something to it. Whereas I think Black people aren't making informed decisions. They're making knee-jerk decisions. And I would like to see the community have all the information, the access to the information, and make the informed decision based on their circumstance and their situation, rather than like some of the hearsay she said, oh, I'm not doing it because no one in my family did it, as opposed to I'm not doing it because I read all the research and I disagree with it.
And I decided not to do it. All back to the conversation of autonomy and being able to make the best decision for yourself. So that's dope. And then Maceo, you got the great grand finale.
Okay, and what am I saying again? Sorry, I got so caught up.
No worries. Just how do you think healthcare professionals can communicate information about the vaccine better? So at the very least, people can make informed decisions about their bodily autonomy.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm probably the worst person to ask that question.
I agree.
This is the thing though, right? I don't know a lot about medicine, and I don't know a lot about this is funny because like I have healthcare. I do have long conversations with my doctor about things, and for me personally, you have to educate people from the bottom up, you know, and have like a sense of conversations. So I know for the campaign I'm working on, what we're doing is we're having long conversations, educating people about like the basics, you know,
Yeah.
into the what you call it, into the like the more like, you know, strenuous things and everything, you know, because again, you know, during Tuskegee, they ain't tell them that they was, you know, injecting them with syphilis. You know what I'm saying?
They did not.
So all I'm saying, and that was a government program, you feel me? All I'm saying is this, you know, I know what I know not, and I will admit what I don't know, what I have to learn. And I feel like as a black man, other black men need to say, hey, I don't know this. I'm not ashamed of not knowing it, and I will go get the answer instead of saying, okay, white people are doing it, I'm gonna do it too. Because last time I checked, Hitler killed white people, you know what I'm saying, who happen to be Jewish. Last time I checked, you know, poor white communities, they're dying of hunger, just like how black communities are dying of hunger, and they're getting bad medicines, just like how the black communities get bad medicines. So I'm not basing my movement on another, you know, racial movement and everything. I'm basing it on what I don't know and what I can learn to better myself and everything in my community. So that's what I'm gonna say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that is an awesome way to recap it. I feel like one of the greatest enemies to our community right now is just the lack of information and disinformation. So I appreciate being able to talk to each of you to get the facts straight. Yeah, thank you for the ups and downs of this podcast. I hope everyone feels good about what we just talked about and doesn't feel disrespected in any way. I appreciate all of you.
I do want to say one thing though, if I can. So I do want to apologize to, I think her name is Amina.
Yeah.
So if I talk over you, I apologize. You know, like, you know, when ideas are being exchanged and everything, I just like, you got the degree, I'm gonna listen to you. I'm learning from you because I feel like what you said, you know, informed me, you know, more than I knew walking into this podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's not a big deal. I mean, I'm assertive, but I'm also soft-spoken, but I'm not gonna let nobody talk over me. So, you know, that's how I am. I'm from a matriarchal community. I'm not gonna let, especially no man, talk over me. But we cool. Like, it's all good. But at the same time, like, I think to close out, I definitely want to say that I think medicine has evolved a lot in the past, I'd say 20 years. There are a lot more Black people in medicine. There's a lot more Indigenous people in medicine. There could always be more. And we're working towards that. And I want to leave it on like a more positive note in that regard. And there's definitely is a lot more work to do, but I have a lot of hope for, you know, the future of medicine if we continue to have these types of conversations.
Definitely. And I appreciate all of you guys. I hope you guys stay safe, stay healthy, spread all the good information you can, and make sure the people around you are good. Good luck with everything this week, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks with our next episode. Thank you.